That's going. Live page is going. Gary, it's just us tonight.
It is. I don't know.
Just hang on. The record. Go. Say, Gary, it's just us tonight.
Yeah.
I think you're breaking up a bit.
Okay, let me kill the video.
Okay.
Is that any better?
Yeah, it probably work itself out there. So we'll start again. Gary,
Okay.
Good evening, and it's just us again.
It is. I know. Jason goes off out of the country, and Cortana comes in.
He's going to be very upset, isn't he?
He is.
Just as he leaves the country, Cortana arrives.
Yeah. Even though she is pretending to have an English accent.
Yeah, which was what we suspected the other day, wasn't it? But yeah. So we're going to talk about that. Yeah, it was quite a lot of Windows Phone news actually. A bit of Windows 8.1 news, just hitting the wires. So I'll have that as well. A bit of server news as well, and probably some app news and some other XBMC news as well. A new name for XBMC coming. So we've got quite a bit to talk about. But first, I want to talk about a story that you sent me actually. Which is this vulnerability security issue for Synology NAS boxes, and it sounds pretty serious actually. Do you want to give us a background on that?
Yeah, so there's this thing called SinoLocker, which is one of these ransomwares, which is basically one of those things where it's like a Trojan which gets in a vulnerability on a server and then basically holds you to ransom unless you pay the hackers some money. They won't let you get to your data. And it's been affecting quite a few Synologies, and I've certainly seen a lot of talk about it in the forums. Synology have put out a statement which is basically saying we'd like to provide a brief update regarding the recent ransomware called SinoLocker. We are fully dedicated to investigating this issue and possible solutions. Based on our current observation, the issue only affects Synology's NAS servers running some older versions of DSM. And they say DSM 4.3-3810 or earlier, by exploiting a security vulnerability that was fixed and patched in December 2013. At present, we have not observed this vulnerability in DSM 5. Now, I'll leap in there and say that I've certainly seen people in the forums, and I know someone posted on the post that they've seen people in the forums saying we're getting this in DSM 5. Not substantiated totally yet, but certainly that's that is a worry beyond this. And they say Synology gone to say that for servers running 4.3.3810 or earlier, they recommend they shut down the system and contact the technical support team, and they've got a link which you've got in the link. And what the symptoms are: when attempting to log into DSM, a screen appears informing users that the data has been encrypted and a fee is required to unlock data. A process called SinoSync is running it in the resource monitor. It's 4.3 or 8 years earlier, but if you try and do an update, it says the latest version is installed.
Right.
So if you haven't already had this, and it seems to be affecting an awful lot of people, they recommend immediately upgrading to DSM 5 or later. And they think that will solve the problem, but obviously there is this concern that we've seen people in the forum saying that it's a problem. So quite a nasty one. I mean, and it just goes to prove that anything is vulnerable. Synology have proud themselves on their security over the years, and they've done a pretty good job up to now. So it's a quite sophisticated hack. It's quite a tricky one to solve, but they're doing their best to solve it. They are, from what I can see on the support forums, they're doing a really good job of actually holding people's hands and trying to get them out of the problem.
Yeah, because it's one thing to get it, but then it's like you said, it's ransomware. It's holding your data is there, but it's only so it's not like your traditional, perhaps your old style virus that wipes data. It's there, but they want you to pay up to release it.
Yeah. I've always wondered actually when payments come involved, they're usually traceable. So,
I believe they're using Bitcoin.
Yeah, I believe in Bitcoin's eventually traceable. It's like kind of traceable. I know the FBI have done some work on that sort of thing. So I suspect they may get their comeuppance at some point, but it'll be a little way down the road. And for now, obviously, people are going to be stuck without access to data. And if you think about what you tend to put on something like a Synology NAS, it's going to be pictures, your photos, those really precious things.
Yeah, and you could have your whole home thing backed up on there, isn't it? And the other reason I think it was right to mention as well is because we're not just people using it for that. We've also got like DVB Link installed on there, and
indeed, television.
Yeah, so you could be using it for your TV server, and I don't know that's not the end of the world if you lose that. It's your pictures and things like that are a problem, um, but there's no sort of cure, is there? Once you've got this thing, it just says contact them via their support forum. And I followed the link, and it wasn't like a set of tips. It was an actual contact form.
Yeah. And but they do seem to be getting back to people and talking them through how to get around the problem to some extent. Although I know I've heard people saying they've actually lost data, so it's not an overall solution. But at least they're trying to help, and they were very prompt to come up and say this is a problem, and we know it's a problem. We're trying to solve it. I'm just a bit concerned about the fact that some people seem to have got it on the absolute latest version.
Yeah. Now, am I right in thinking that if you're behind a firewall without any port forwarding rules, you don't really have to worry about it as much?
Well, I don't know with ransomware because it depends how it's got in and what it's done. I mean, most of the time that's absolutely true because people can't get in and can't actually access your system. But say it's been brought in on some sort of email attachment or website you've actually visited, and then can get on the local network somehow and actually get to it.
Yes.
So not knowing exactly how this has worked, I don't know if that is the case. I mean, normally, yes, you would say if you haven't got access to the server, you can't hack the server directly.
Yeah.
And that would definitely be, and it's certainly definitely a layer of protection you might want to consider. I know some people use their NASMOT system to do remote access, and obviously that does restrict that, but it's one of these trade-offs where you might want a bit of protection at the moment because it does seem to be rampant.
Yeah.
So I certainly would say that was a good idea. Also, the other thing about if you lock down with a good firewall, you can usually prevent the callbacks going back to the server. So some of these things actually call back to get an encryption key, and if you can't call back and get the encryption key, you can't do the encryption.
Yeah.
So that can be quite a useful way of approaching it, but it really just depends how it's been put together.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So if I was thinking that it was probably done by sort of port scanning your external internet connection, but you're right. If I installed a bad the bad virus on my my MacBook or my laptop or whatever, then it scans the network, then it could find it.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it's pretty, and it's not the first time we've seen these ransomware ones, but it's the first one that I've seen that seems to be targeting a non-Windows device.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, it's one of these things where Linux and Experience are actually really vulnerable to this sort of stuff. They're far more vulnerable than most Windows platforms are. But the reason they haven't been attacked to a great degree is just there hasn't been any worthwhile need to do it, because there hasn't been a market out there of people using that sort of platform of a sufficient number to make it worthwhile. Whereas Synology, in some ways, are a victim of their own success here. They've been very successful. They are the brand. People know a lot of people use those devices. So they're a good target.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing as well is it's also what you're putting on there, like as your point is, you're not just sticking any old stuff on there. You tend to put on your precious stuff on there, so that makes
indeed.
it
more of a target.
Yeah,
high value target. Yeah.
It's pretty nasty, and it doesn't seem to be a simple way to clear it out, and you just got to if you've got it, contact the forums. But if you haven't got it, I would certainly make sure you're fully patched. Yeah,
definitely make sure you're up to date as soon as possible, and keep patching. I think that's the thing, and also I would say at the moment just keep an eye on things. I'm not sure there's any sort of scans or anything you can run on a Synology box, but certainly I would run scans on your own PCs and make sure they're patched and up to date and got all the security patches on as well.
Yeah. I mean, you've just got to treat it as a Windows device, haven't you? And make sure it's patched up to date and everything else.
Yeah, indeed.
I wonder whether we've come a bit not lax is not probably the word, but a bit relaxed about these kind of things because of devices like Windows RT, the iPhone. It's hard. A Windows Phone. It's harder to get viruses on these kind of things. They seem to be more locked down, and so we kind of got a bit lax maybe.
Yeah, I think so, and certainly you can see that on the Android side. I mean, Android's wide open for this sort of attack. So I think that's probably where the next major scare will be on that side, somewhere along the line. Yeah,
because that's certainly got the numbers out there.
Yeah, indeed. Would be scary.
It's funny actually, but one of the reasons my son decided to get a Windows phone is because he said they don't get viruses.
Mm.
And that's not something that's come from me. And he's just aware that must have been talking to his friends, that Windows phones don't get viruses and Android does. And he's never had a virus, but I don't know. They must have talked about it at school or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's well worth reading the article, and I say you sent me the links, so all the links are in there as well.
Yeah, everything's in there you need to do, and they are, and we'll keep you informed if there's any changes, because they're technology are keeping us informed.
Yeah. Right. What else we wanted to go to? Okay, so let's move on to something a bit more interesting, a bit more fun, I should say. Windows Phone 8.1 update. We talked about it last week, and it's here.
Yeah, I was right. It did come before the end of August.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And it was this year as well.
Yeah. So this was quite a surprise. It arrived on... Well, I suppose it wasn't a surprise because he did say it was coming, but we're still surprised to actually get it.
Yeah, well, when it first announced, because I think last week we were talking about they hadn't actually announced the date it was due to arrive, and then they came up and said it'll be here next week on to Flip. But it was a bit of a surprise because they'd only it was a very short time between announcement and actually release, which is great. I mean, if Microsoft can start doing that as a matter of principle, I think that'll be really good. So they've pushed out update 1, not without its problems. It has to be said. I think it was around about 20 to 25% of people trying to do the update have had problems.
Yeah, I think so. Now, I should say before as well, there was a bit of confusion, wasn't it, last week, because as Microsoft clear as mud put things out of how you would get this and what you'd have to be running to get this.
Yes, indeed. So eventually it has become clear. We've actually got out of Joe Belfiori's mouth the exact thing. So basically, you can, if you're on the 8.1 developer preview program, you will get prompted to do the update for developer preview for 8.1 update 1, regardless of whether you've got Cyan or not. If you haven't got Cyan, it will update you. I'm also told that now that this also frees up any issues of you getting the Cyan update.
Right.
So you on developer preview, once the Cyan update is available for your region, you will get the Cyan update. I'm not sure if that's only if you've got update 1. That's the one thing I'm still not totally clear on. But certainly, if you've got update 1, you will get this Cyan update.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because the only reason they stopped the Cyan was because of the BitLocker problem, wasn't it?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So and that's been fixed in the 8.1 update.
That's been fixed in the 8.1 update.
Right.
1. So and we'll go on to what 8.1 update 1 offers in a minute because it's really worth having. But there is a problem going on at the moment, which quite a few people got. That Microsoft are well aware of this and are trying to solve the problem. Basically, what happens is you start the update, the cogs whir for a few seconds, and then it says, comes back and restarts and says, we can't complete the update at this time. Please retry later. And no matter how many times you retry, it doesn't work.
Mm.
I had this on my 920. And because I wanted to try the update ready for the show, I actually did a reset of mine, backed it up, did a reset, and reinstalled. That worked. And then restore the backup, which isn't too painful a process, actually. 1 or 2 things didn't come back, but because they've got that process really nicely, as Jason said last week, in terms of when he got his new phone, everything sort of comes back when you change phone. You can as long as you back up and restore, you don't lose too much. I lost one photo, which I thought I'd already got backed up on the OneDrive, but hadn't done, so just be a bit cautious on that. But basically, that's at the moment that's the only way to get the update to go if you get this error. And you either have to do. Some people are finding they can just do a normal reset. Some people are finding they're having to use the Nokia recovery tool and go all the way back to 8.0 to get it to work. I certainly didn't have to do that, so I wouldn't try that first. I'd just try do a backup normal reset. So the process is if you do want to install it and you get in the error, is you do your backup. You back up, make sure your system's backed up. You do a reset. When it first comes back up, it prompts you for your Microsoft account. It'll then ask you if you want to restore the backup. Don't restore the backup at that point. Do your updates. You probably get 2 updates at that point, which is interesting. Because obviously before it was only 1 update, so there's something to do with that, which I think is partly causing the issue. And then once it's finished doing all the updates, you then reset it again, but this time you do restore from backup, and then when it's all done, you'll have Cortana sitting there ready to talk to you.
Yeah, well, on my 1520, which hasn't got the Scion update yet because it's just starting to roll out, and obviously I had the developer preview installed, so I knew I wouldn't get it anyway. So I was considering doing the rollback, but then I could see that it wasn't enabled anyway for my region, so I didn't bother. So I just got the update straight away. It prompted for an update, and it installed a couple of minutes later, or 5 minutes later, it was done. So that worked pretty well. And my son's 625 worked fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of people I've spoken to has worked. A lot of people I've spoken to it hasn't worked for them. And some people have even found that they've got two phones when one it's worked on, the other one it hasn't worked on, the same brand. And I mean, I even talked to one guy who actually runs two phones, one at work and one at home, which are identical in terms of what he has on them, because he basically does the backup on one and restores it on the other.
Yeah.
Keep them in line. And one it worked on, the other one it didn't work, and yet they're the same phone. So there's no real reason why it's not working. There does seem to be something that is to do with storage spaces. Seems to be what Microsoft is saying, although that, again, doesn't hold totally true, because I've known people with very limited storage space actually managing to get it to install. But they're certainly investigating the way of it. I suspect in a few days we'll actually have an update which works for everybody.
Yeah.
But probably even by the time the show's out. But if you haven't, you can go back through those processes.
Yeah.
It does work. I've got a device which is running on the update. Although I still have got my problem with the battery not charging like I had last week, which is interesting in its own right, because of course it requires you to have a certain amount of charge before it actually install the backup, install the update. So I had to fool it a bit.
So once you get the update, I installed that. So what's the main changes? Obviously Cortana. So what's Cortana like?
Well, Cortana, obviously, we know, we've seen all the stuff from the States. So it's very similar to what they've got out there. There's some things missing. You don't get the 4 square prompts and things. Initially, when she first came out, she didn't have much of a personality, but that's
no, I noticed that.
It seems to have changed overnight. So you can actually ask her to sing you a song now, and she will. I particularly like Daisy Daisy. She sings that rather well. But she's quite useful. She knows about your local weather, news, and things like that. Although it's a rather strange decision to use the Daily Mail as their main news source. But I'm surprised I didn't do some sort of deal with the BBC or something like that, but or Bing News for that matter.
Yeah.
Because they've got a very good news source in the UK anyway. But no, it uses the Daily Mail as its source. But it's got weather. It's got all the stuff you'd expect to have. You can ask it what the weather is. I mean, and you've got the location-based reminders and things. So I mean, today I was short of milk at home, so I just said, remind me to get milk when I get to the shop, and it did.
I tried that today. I said I did it on the way in this morning. I said, remind me to edit the video when I get to the office, and it reminded me about 2 o'clock this afternoon. I thought it'd do it as soon as I got in, but what's the one to sing a song then? You just say Cortana, just say sing me a song.
Sing me a song, yeah.
Sing me a song.
I can sing this one. Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, just some she sings quite well, some she doesn't quite sing so well. I think the accents. When she first came out, she sounded quite depressed and down. I think she's getting a bit brighter now, a bit more bubbly. Maybe she's getting more people to talk to.
Yeah, when she was first released, she was on her own. She's waiting for Jason to connect.
Yeah.
He promised me he'd be there from day one.
Yeah.
Oh, Gary, your Skype's gone weird. Gary, your Skype's gone crazy. I think we'll drop Gary's call there. He's gone crazy. I don't know what's happened there. I think he was trying to do some techno song. Well, let's try and get him back. Gary, we can't. Gary, we can't. All we can hear is you saying, I. That was crazy. Gary's going to try and reboot. So I'll just mention some of the different Richard there. So Richard, you say you've got the 920 working okay. Cortana trying to wrap it. Maybe I should do the podcast with Cortana instead. And that's it. Maybe we'll ask Cortana how do we fix Skype. That was some weird error. That. Let's see if we can get Gary back. Let's try that. Cortana, what happened to Gary's Skype?
I found Visa.
I'll try and get you back, Gary. That was funny. Hello. I.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. That was the weirdest error I've ever heard. Could you hear it?
No, I just died. I just got a black flash up on the screen on where your picture normally is, and then it just died completely.
It just kept saying and every time I dropped the call, it would drop, obviously, and then I called you back. It just carried on doing it.
Hello.
Very strange.
I got to.
Yeah. So it sounded like you were trying to rap something, so we wondered if it was Cortana trying to rap. Anyway, so we've got Cortana working. Like you said, it's got a bit of personality now. Once we've got all the sort of the extra features we're adding on sort of Monday night, I think.
Yeah, I think it's starting to get through it. It's not overly accurate on some of its comments though, because before I went out this evening, I just asked her, "Is it going to rain tonight?" And she said, "It's highly unlikely." Well, it was chucking it down with rain at the time. so I don't think it gets it 100% right, but obviously that's the data it's working on.
And it does the funny things. You can, like you said, you can sing. I asked it, which is better, Bing or Google, and it kind of said, Bing, of course.
Yeah, who is Bill Gates? That's the other one to ask. A few other things as well, but I mean, I think it's going to be useful. I mean, the journey time stuff is quite useful because it's obviously got things like the Google Now type journey times and things. I think over time we'll lose. But I particularly like the location-based reminders. I think that's going to be particularly useful for me. Yeah. Because sometimes I forget I need to do. I remind myself I had something to pick up from the office earlier, and as I was about to drive past the office and forget, it reminded me. So that was quite useful. Yeah. So I just see that good, and I like the ability now because obviously some of the things were limited, but by not having Cortana there, so we can now do things like you can turn your Wi-Fi off and say turn it back on when I'm at home or in favourite places, and you can obviously set your favourite places being home.
Right. Yeah. I think it's a nice little feature.
Yeah. So obviously Cortana's there. The other thing which I know you quite like, Ian, is the new folders feature.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good actually, and it's a better version of the way it works with Android and iOS.
Yeah, I have to say, I think it's one of the best implementation I've seen of folders on any device. So try and explain. I don't know really if you can explain this on the podcast how it looks, but they managed to maintain the live feel to it, haven't they, Ian?
Yeah. So you just drag them over like you would do on iOS or Android. So you get two shortcuts and drag them together. It allows you to name the folder, but they remain live tiles. But it just shrinks them down. So I've got one here. Maybe I can show this on the video. So I've got a social one there. So you can see there's a grid of live tiles, and they're all small at the moment. But every now and again, it slides them around like live tiles do, and it makes one of them bigger, so you get the notifications, and then slides it back. And then when you press on it, it expands it to reveal the full sort of row of shortcuts. So I thought that was a really good implementation of the folders, so you don't lose the live tile, the liveness
of the tile, yes,
the notification of the tile. But I've got a few web shortcuts I use, which really you don't really need live tiles for that because they're just web pages. But they go into that folders really well. So I mean, you don't really need folders on Windows Phone because you've got sort of infinite scrolling. But it is a nice way of grouping things together.
Yeah, I sort of did it just to try it, to be honest, and then I found that a few things actually seem to naturally work in that one. My news sites and things like that. One thing I really like about the way it does the live tiles is that it actually highlights the tiles one at a time almost. So you get one larger tile popping up ever so often, so you can see what's there. So if you've got news stories, you can actually see the if you sort of do the double wide tile with quite a lot of tiles in it, just cycle around. So you get different news sources, and you see what the headlines are from each of the news sources. And I think that's really quite cleverly done.
Yeah, I think it's really well implemented, and it's a very nice feature. That.
Yeah, it just adds something to it. I mean, it's one of those things which you think to yourself, well, do I really need this? Because you can have unlimited scrolling almost on the front page. But yeah, I found I actually have made use of it, and although it does mean it's like a double tap to get something, it does actually make the glance a little bit easier and a bit structured. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing, is that you can have all your tiles that have a lot of notifications. You can have them, so as soon as you switch it on, you can see them. Yeah. Rather than scrolling all the way down or whatever.
Yeah. So other things have changed. They've got better. We mentioned this last week. Better Bluetooth. So we've now got aptX support. We've got better AVR-CP. It actually now syncs with my my in-car stereo and actually gives me contact details, which we never did before. So that's really good. So I can actually sync my phone book across now. So that's a definite improvement. Although that one wasn't mentioned in the list of things, but it definitely huge improvement. That. So I'm really pleased by that. I'm trying to think what else on there, but there's better support for the Bluetooth LE side of things. You've got there was a whole thing mentioned the other day that first-party partners. So this is not for developers like me because I can't get to it, but there's a whole load of hidden APIs for supporting things like smartwatches in the APIs. So that'd be quite useful to have.
Yeah, and what else? Oh, Internet Explorer as well. They've tweaked that, haven't they? So
it goes to mobile sites now. Actually, in fact, I'm not sure that's always necessarily a good thing. I'd like to override that at times. I noticed that, and I use the railway timetable site a lot, National Rail site a lot, and it always used to go to the full-size version. It's now going to the mobile one, but their mobile site is so slow compared to the main site. I'd almost like to go back to the main site, but
you can toggle that, can't you?
You can, yes, and you just go in and toggle it, and it's not too bad to do. I mean, I have to say it does a very good job of rendering those sites now. Some of the sites it didn't render at all well before, it does render a lot better. Scaling works better, and it just looks right. So yes, that's definitely a better experience.
Yeah, and Richard in the chat room saying that Sync works better on his VW. Bluetooth audio still doesn't show track info, and IE is a lot better. So I noticed the one thing I noticed with IE as well. I mean, this was before the update. Is on the 1520s you can go with the desktop one, and really you don't lose out too much.
Yeah, because you've got the screen space to do it.
Yeah, but yeah, the whole thing just feel slightly better. I don't know whether there's some other sort of undercover features as well, tweaks as well, that makes it feel a bit faster and maybe a bit.
It does feel faster, doesn't it? It feels snappier. I've noticed that. It seems to moving. Things seem to move quicker on the screens. I can't quite figure out what, but it looks really good.
I'm trying to think what else there was. They were the main things. There was some enterprise stuff, wasn't there? So like you can have lockdown apps and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot. So you've got App Corner, which is really useful for someone like me who's running apps on a line of business approach, because you can just basically put a few line of business apps on in there and just only allow access to them. It's almost like a kiosk mode, which is really good.
Yeah. Now, not all devices have got this, because, as we said, Nokia. We're all talking Nokia devices so far. But I've noticed my older HTC 8X hasn't got the update, although it did get an update today. Although it could have been in the last week, because we started in the last week. But so I saw the update today. I thought, oh, look, they've got the update, but it isn't there. It's still on Windows 8 Phone 8.1, the standard build, or the dev build. It
is, yeah. And there's some talk of, well, there's a bit of confusion on this. I have a lot of things around this update. But at one point they were saying that the HTCs would need an update, a driver update from HTC before they could get the update. They're now saying that maybe that's not the case, and maybe there is a glitch in the update which is preventing getting to HTCs, and they're going to look at it from a Microsoft point of view. So I'm not sure what the actual answer is.
No. So I'm glad I got a Nokia. And just in general, the phone is working so well. I'm sort of contemplating swapping my SIMs around and putting my main SIM into the 1520 and just using that all the time now. It works really well, and yes, there's a few apps that don't exist and you've got to find workarounds, but most of the stuff works on really well, especially now I've got Cortana as well.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I still think they've made a couple of mistakes with Cortana. To taking away the ability to get to the Bing Vision lens quickly. Just don't understand why they took that off the screen. There's loads of real estate on the Cortana screen to have it there. And they've got the music search, which used to be there. So I just understand why that shortcut's been taken away. Because that's something I used every day almost, to do QR codes, go ahead and scanning, whatever. Check up value prices of things, so I do miss that. But generally, it's a very good update, and it makes it just feel again that bit more modern, and in some cases ahead of the competition.
Yeah, I definitely really enjoyed my 1520, and I think I think they're definitely getting there now.
Yeah.
The all the Bing apps or not all of them, but the finance, news, weather, and health were updated today.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't know if that's related.
I guess it might be related. I haven't actually seen anything which to actually say what the changes are.
Yeah,
but,
no, they don't have a release notes.
Yeah.
The music app's supposed to be getting a big makeover, but that's a separate sort of shipping app, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'll have to wait for that one.
Yeah.
I posted the review of the 635 as well last week, so my son's very happy with his phone. Using it seems to be his games console, really. It's many time on there, but he's taking a lot of pictures with it as well.
Yeah, I think just while we're on the update, one thing I'm slightly disappointed to is on the Bluetooth LE side of things, because they still haven't implemented the way to support unpaired devices, which means you still can't do any sort of beacon type support.
Yeah.
You can obviously pair something like the Treasury tag and have a paired device, but to do anonymous beacon type thing, so the approach where information's being given away in shops by the beacons and things like that just will not work on Windows Phone, and there's no way to implement it. There's no way a third-party developer can actually there's something under the hood which allows that to be implemented. And that's disappointing, I think, because it is going to become a very prominent standard over the next few years. And I think that both Android and Apple support it. Obviously, it's an Apple product, which may be why it's not got the support in Windows. But it is part of the GAPS Bluetooth standard, so it ought to be something they're implementing.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's on the iPhone. It's called iBeacon, isn't it? Although I've yet to see it in the wild, and maybe if you go to an Apple store, they're using it. But I know the idea anyway.
It's more prominent in the States now. It's becoming, and I think it's going to start becoming more prominent over here. I'm certainly getting approached about it by a lot of things, and it has some really good approaches. I mean, I experienced it a couple of days ago. We was walking past a cafe, and it sort of notification popped up and said, "If you want a cup of coffee here, we'll give you one for free." Which sort of thing. Okay, fine. Obviously, trying to suck you in to buy other things, but yeah. That's the sort of useful type of approach to it. I mean, you could get annoying if you want to, but you've got the opportunity to turn it off if you don't want to be marketed to.
Yeah. Some of the things I wanted to talk about this week. One of the things I wanted to talk about this week. Remember we talked about Now TV, the Sky's sort of media service, a pay-as-you-go service, being on the Xbox One. We actually talked about that at launch. But it didn't turn up. It was listed as a launch app. It never arrived. But it's here, just a week after the PlayStation one was announced.
Yeah, so it's taken a while, but good to have it there.
It just seems a shame they haven't got the Sky Go on there, which they do have on the Xbox 360.
Yeah, although how long that will stay on the Xbox 360, I'm not sure. They do seem to be moving towards trying to get you to pay for these things.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you have to pay anyway now, don't you? Pay extra.
Yeah.
You have to get the premium version of the Sky Go. But
they make even more money on Now TV.
Yeah. So with the Now TV, as I said, it's a pay service, so no subscription, but you can get I think you can get like a weekend pass for Sky Sports and things like that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Oh, what?
I think the sports stuff is way too expensive. I mean, there's a lot of vouchers and things available on the entertainment and the things, and if you've got a decent access to broadband, then it's quite a good way of getting movies and things. It's not such a good way if you haven't got a decent broadband. A lot of people moan about it like anything because it's not very good at adapting to poor quality.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things I really did like about Netflix is it does adapt really well.
Yes, it does. It's extremely well.
Not that I have to worry about that at home anymore.
Nope.
Where's Jason?
I don't know where he's gone. He's probably got no broadband at all now.
Yeah. Other things on Windows. Windows 8.1. Xbox Video got a surprise update with a new look.
Yes, it did. I think we mentioned this to some extent last week, but it's now gone to look very much like the music app.
Yeah.
And it's good. I hadn't really had a chance to play with it last week, but it's a lot. I find it a lot easier to navigate. A lot of people have moaned about the look and said why they go music app shouldn't be the same as a video app, but I do actually think it looks quite well.
Yeah, it's fairly consistent. It's lost the sort of big image look though it had before, which I quite liked actually, but it didn't always suit every form factor.
No, and I guess on a smaller form factor it's more difficult to navigate because you've got less size buttons, but. I like the approach. It seems to be easy to actually find things. And I found stuff on there which I didn't actually know was on there before.
Yeah.
So
I've yet to really use that service, I must admit.
Yeah.
Now, talking of Windows 8.1, just as we came to record tonight, there was an update on the Windows blog talking about new features for Windows 8.1 or updates to Windows 8.1. I don't even know if you've had a chance to see it yet.
I haven't had a chance to. Literally just flew in the door, so I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
So I'll include a link in the show notes. But in the post, it's actually Brandon LeBlanc that wrote the post. They talk about the April update being of sort of the Windows 8.1 update. With brought a lot of changes, but now going forward they're going to do sort of minor changes over monthly rather than doing an update 2. And he actually says we are not planning to deliver a Windows 8.1 update 2.
Yeah.
So many people thought that was coming in August. There has been rumours that it was coming in August, but it looks like that isn't the case. So there are updates coming. Just they'll be via the usual Windows update, however you get your updates. So what they're talking about here is this is what's coming in the August 12th update, so that'll be next patch Tuesday. Precision touchpad improvements. 3 new end user settings have been added. Leave the touchpad on when there's mouse connected. Allow right clicks on the touchpad and double tap and drag. Miracast received. That sounds quite interesting. So exposes a set of Wi-Fi direct APIs for IHVs, independent hardware vendors, or OEM drivers to develop 32-bit applications run on supported x64 and x86 base versions of Windows 8.1, enabling Miracast, the computer acts as a Miracast receiver. So what all that means is doesn't work on ARM, but it will work on 32 and 64-bit versions of Intel Windows. Is Windows 8.1 could be a Miracast receiver, which is quite interesting. So you can send video to it.
As long as you've got hardware which supports that.
Yeah, right. That's it. Yeah, it's Wi-Fi direct, isn't it?
Yeah. So I guess that means if you could have a Wi-Fi direct USB card, I was going to say card, but that's not right. USB dongle for Wi-Fi Direct and plug it into and that should become a.
Right. Yeah. So if you've got a PC hooked up to your TV, your media center PC, you could have Wi-Fi Direct dongle.
And also I guess there are some Intel Wi-Fi cards which support Wi-Fi Direct, so maybe that they could be enabled to support this.
It's an unusual scenario, isn't it? I mean, normally we think about getting your laptop and sending your Surface or whatever, sending the video to a TV, but this is the other way around.
It makes a lot of sense. It's quite useful. I can actually imagine that being quite useful in a business scenario where you have a PC connected up to say a projector, and then transmit it to that. That could be quite useful.
Yeah. The other one is minimizing login prompts for SharePoint Online. Don't use SharePoint Online. So these are coming up through the Windows update on August the 12th. So interesting that they're previewing those and also putting the message out that there is no update 2 coming.
Yes, and I'm not surprised that there's not going to be an update 2. I had an inkling from some of the things they've been saying about the way they're going to restructure, the way they're going to do development, that they're going to go for a much quicker turnaround with much smaller tranches of things to be in the development cycle, so they actually move things through faster.
Yeah, and then I guess they'll save the big headline of new features for the next version of Windows.
Yes, yeah.
Richard's saying that he's still saving up for a Surface Pro 3 to play with one on a recent trip, and it's a perfect device. I haven't touched one yet, so I'm still keen to try.
Yeah, I did see one. I saw one very early on when they were before they were actually released in the UK, and was very impressed with it. So I think it's a good device.
Yeah. Now, changing platforms completely. XBMC, we've been talking about XBMC for many years.
Yep.
In fact, it dates back to 2002?
Yeah, I guess it must be that old.
Yeah.
Visual Xbox, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, it was called Xbox Media Player.
Yeah.
And then it became XBMC, but now it's getting renamed and losing its Xbox roots.
Yeah, I understand why they want to rename it, because having Xbox in the name gives them all sorts of legal problems, makes it very difficult in marketing and things on it. I mean, even with XBMC, because it's a known derivative, that still gave them problems in the States in marketing and stuff. So I can understand why they want to change it. I'm just not sure about the name they've chosen.
Yeah, so the name is Kodi.
Yeah.
That's CODI.
Yeah. Maybe I'll get used to it. It doesn't ring to me of media and entertainment, but maybe it does to somebody else.
And I think it's actually called, the full name is like Kodi Entertainment Centre, isn't it? Something
it's
like
Kodi Entertainment Centre, which is okay, fine, but
I personally would try to keep the X in it somewhere, just.
Yeah, just keep some continuity along the line, but I guess that's difficult when you've got. Because again, you might let this name derivative stuff that people know the X goes to Xbox, therefore it still stays for Xbox.
Yeah, because I think one of the issues you've had is people sort of effectively selling XBMC, even though it's open source.
Because they've got no control over it, because of the legal side of things. I mean, one of the interesting things about the Kodi Entertainment Centre is the initials become CEC, which is just never trademarked. so I don't know quite where they're going with this, but.
It'll be K.
Oh, it's K, isn't it? Of course.
Kodi with a K.
They've thought that one then.
I'm sure it means something else anyway.
Yeah.
It's hard. I guess it's hard choosing a name because you're not only got to choose a name that nobody else has used. You've got to make sure you can get the domains in all the various flavors.
That's the interesting thing, because apparently they haven't got the domains for Kodi. So that seems an odd choice in its own right if other people own some of the domains.
Yeah, definitely. Because they currently use xbmc.org.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not sure about that, but we shall see.
I mean, there's just so many things that use it as well. I'm thinking like the Raspberry Pi, but Raspberry MC, and although they've got a new version coming out soon that's not going to be Raspberry Pi based.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can totally understand it. It's just I don't know. I like the fact that it goes back to the hacked Xbox. You had to actually solder something, I seem to remember, didn't you?
Oh yeah, it definitely was a hack,
Yeah.
a real hack. But yeah, okay, cool stuff.
Yeah, and there's a new version of XBMC out anyway. If you're staying up to date, 13.2 Gotham Beta 3.
Yep. So
Minor fixes.
minor fixes.
Yeah, and this renaming, by the way, is coming with the next version, which will be XBMC 14, which I've completely forgot the code name.
Yeah, I can't remember. There is an alpha out for it now. You can download it if you want.
Yeah.
To try.
So I guess it'll be in there. I wonder how many software add-in plugins it'll break just by changing the name. Helix, by the way, is the code name.
Helix, yeah, that's it. You're right.
Yeah.
Had to be something beginning with H, didn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, just a shame, but understandable.
Yeah, I do think it's understandable. I think it's just I just don't like the new name, but that's me.
We'll get used to it.
Yeah, you probably will. You get used to most things.
Yeah. Now, if you're a media browser user, there's a new plugin available that actually goes back to there was a Media Center version of it that we talked about. Well, we used to talk about many years ago. A play on add-in.
Yes, play on. That is going back in time.
So, for anybody who doesn't remember, play on is a kind of it's kind of a service you install on a PC, isn't it? And it then redistributes web content.
Yeah, basically turns web content into DLNA content. So it makes it playable on other platforms. I think they've gone slightly away from that now, and there's more to it than just that. But that in its own right was a very useful thing in its time.
Yeah, because you could use it for Hulu.
Yeah, you could get a lot of stuff out, and I think it sort of died a bit because they lost a lot of their content, but they seem to have been making a resurgence of late.
Yeah, so this works on. This just basically adds it as support for media browser.
Yeah.
Which is good to see. What else I want to mention? Some minor updates. Oh, VLC was updated again for Android.
Yes.
Now, do you think if we talk about VLC for Windows Phone and Windows RT every week, we'll eventually get it?
No. Every one of those things about things we talked about last week. Still no VLC.
Yeah. It's funny, that one, isn't it? I mean, they've got the Intel version out there, and they were seemed to be pretty close to getting the Windows RT. But
I think it's going to be very difficult again for certification, to be honest. I think that's going to be a real challenge. So I'm not surprised they're struggling, but
you kind of wonder if they're even going to bother, unless there's a new Surface comes out that runs Windows RT. It does seem that Windows RT, it's probably maybe that isn't the direction you focus. You should look at getting Universal app. That's what Microsoft wanting to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
One that runs on Windows Phone as well, especially when we start to see these 7-inch Windows phones. Actually, talking about certification apps, I don't know you had this before, but remember I talked last time I updated my Flickr app? It took something like an hour to get it certified, which has gone from the 3 days that it used to be to an hour, and I was quite impressed. And I did say at the time, I don't think they tested it properly.
Yes.
Well, it looks like they didn't, because in the time since I've submitted the previous version with the release notes, the Flickr account, the test account, because whenever you submit an app, if you submit it for a service, you've got to give them a test account so they can test it.
Yep.
And the Flickr account was disabled because Flickr have now removed Google and Facebook authentication. Mm-hmm. So they obviously couldn't have tested, I think, the last 2 releases. So out of the blue, I got an email from the Windows Store saying, we've been unable to test your app because of the authentication issues. Please resubmit your app with updated credentials, or you'll be removed within the store if you don't do it within 15 days.
That's interesting. I don't know if I've ever had one tested out of band. But I guess it does happen.
Yeah, so it must be perhaps a new approach. Rather than testing on submission, they're doing the sort of the malware checks and those kind of things, but they're not perhaps doing functionality checks on submission. They're doing those out of band, like you said, just maybe random or maybe on some kind of cycle or something like that. So anyway, I had to resubmit it. Didn't make any changes, just gave them a new username and password, and it got submitted. It was all automated, but strange kind of a thing saying, your app will be withdrawn if you do not act now.
Yeah, I sort of kind of understand that. It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if it speeds up the approval process as well, then it's worth it. Especially when you've got, in my case, it was an urgent update because of the API changes. So
yeah,
it's better than not hold it up. But I thought it was just a bit of an interesting thing to crop up. Right, what else have got? So, I think that's most of the items I had for this week. Oh, a couple of other apps updates. Channel 5 Demand app has been updated. New look coming to that. And what else was? Oh, I posted an article. I don't know if I mentioned this about how to use Google Maps on Windows. So I think I did actually mention this last week, didn't I?
You did, yes.
Yeah.
That was very good.
Yeah.
So I've got just one thing. Nakamichi, who I've talked about quite a few times, have just released a new product. Their MBS8 portable Bluetooth speaker, and there's an awful lot of portable Bluetooth speakers out there. So I wasn't going to mention it, but
Two on my desk.
Yeah, but I like the idea of this one because it's actually got motion control in it, so you can wave at it to change track and wave it to to make so I'm going to give it a go. And the other thing is it's got a microphone built in as well, so you can use it for hands-free. But I think it's going to I was thinking it actually might make a really good client thing for voice automation. So put it in another room and actually use it as a mic in another room.
Oh, saying that you can sort of give it commands by waving.
Yeah, and voice, well, talk to it and actually get, because it's basically a two-way communication thing. Then, so I'm getting one on review, so I should tell you all about it at some point. But I just thought it was worth mentioning because it's quite a nice product and it's out. It's actually quite a reasonable price as well. It's got all the sort of the stuff in that. Nakamichi do really well, and sound quality from the spec sounds like it should be really good. So and it's only 70 quid, so not bad at all.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I like the idea. I'd be interested if we get if you get Cortana linked in with your voice control, if you sort of use your phone and pass the messages on to you.
Yeah. You could well do that. I've looked at the idea of writing a voice Cortana extension for the Vox Commander stuff I use. So yeah, certainly is feasible.
And is that open to developers? They can extend it.
Yeah. Cortana's you can. I mean, if you look, you'll see a lot of apps come out with Cortana support now. So yeah, it's definitely doable.
Yeah, I noticed the remote desktop app for Windows Phone was updated today, and that's added Cortana support, so you can tell your phone to remote desktop your server. Yeah. And if you can tell it to reboot as well.
Yeah.
Right, so just remind us where we can find your stuff, what you got on Fascinating Tech.
Yep, so I'm fascinatingtech.com, Gary, and at GaryWMA on Twitter. Fascinating Tech, well, we're still on the summer issue, although we're starting to look at the autumn issue now and trying to get that together. So if anybody's out there has got anything they want us to review, let us know. But yeah, so the competition's still going strong. There's still a chance to win prizes, so get your entries in. We've had quite a few from following on from last week when I mentioned it. So, but there's still a chance. The closing date's the end of this month, so please come along. There's lots of prizes out there. We've got some fabulous stuff from Energizer and some of the packs. I really like those Energizer. I don't know if I mentioned these Energizer power packs, but we actually had a lovely email from someone who explained how the Energizer pack had actually almost, not quite, but possibly saved their life. So basically what they were saying, they were on holiday up in Scotland, and they'd forgotten to bring the power charger for the phone, and they knew they had to phone their doctor to get some results of a test.
Oh, gosh.
She remembered the review we'd written on Fascinating Tech where we'd mentioned the fact that these Energizer packs come pre-charged. So if you buy them, they're actually fully charged when you get them.
Right. So, yeah.
And they retain the charge really well as well. So she went down to picked one of these Energizer chargers up, plugged in the phone, charged, and phoned a doctor, and discovered she was needed back for a fairly urgent operation. So it's amazing how these things work out sometimes. But yeah, but very good. I mean, that's a very good feature. I know some of the other power packs also come fully charged, but they don't always seem to hold the charge as well as these ones do, which is really good. Yeah,
excellent stuff. Well, I enjoyed your rapping in the middle of the show.
Yeah, yes, my Max headphone impression for anybody who remembers him.
Yeah, maybe I'll include that on the outro. Because I'll probably clean up. And we should be about 8:30 next week. I don't think Jason's back yet, unless he's come back to update his phone.
I don't know, maybe. Cortana, remind Jason to come home.
Right, we'll be back Tuesday, probably same time next week, and we'll see you then.
Okay, Cortana, sing end music.
Goodbye.
Bye.